I want to touch on the idea of emptiness. Emptiness is more or less often pointed at in spiritual teachings. The application of this in my realization or in my observation is the unmerging, right? Unmerging from the identity construct or the broadcast or the frequency, etc. It is recognizing that you could say, the consciousness awareness that is in charging of that. That is at the, that is in support of that, or that is backing of that, right? There is you could say, emptiness that is at the background of the foreground, which is the identity construct. And so you can say it is, giving, surrendering all attributions to the foreground, to the construct, to the identity of your choosing, you can say, and remaining as emptiness, remaining as the isness presence awareness, right? That is in choosing or using of that particular identity construct or frequency or stream or broadcast, right? There is the emptying out of self. There is the recognition of quote unquote proper attribution. You recognize that the attribution belongs to the construct or the broadcast, and you are in using of it. You are in feeding of it. You are in, you are in recognition of its presence. You're in using of it. An analogy that comes to mind is the idea of, you can say, being a funder or a backer of a certain, let's say, project, of a certain uh, cause or a certain person, you can say, being a sponsor, being a backer, a funder, right? And that particular project or that particular something is the one that contains the attributions. The credit belongs to that. And you are the funder, right? You're the supporter, you know? That's where you're funneling or investing your energy onto, your currency. That's where you're putting it in, you know? But you yourself are empty because the attributions lie in what you're backing, in what you're funding, you can say. You know how investors, right? They really, quote unquote, don't do anything other than put their money in a certain company, right? Or in a certain project. The doing is attributed to the company or to the project or the activity, right? The funder, the investor is only funneling their energy, their investment into it. They're in support of it, right? They're backing the project. They're supporting, they are, you know, they are in recognition of it, right? So, but they themselves are empty of the attributions that belong to the project or the company or the person that is being sponsored, you can say. So that's kind of how it is. You know, the idea of emptiness is you can say, releasing of attributions to the quote unquote proper designation. It's kind of like, let's say, the color blue. There is the returning or the non-usurpation of that attribution and recognizing it in blue itself. It is blueness that is blue, right? Blueness, the attribution of blueness is attributed, is recognized, is credited to blue itself, to the color blue itself. It's the releasing of it instead of usurping of it. Right? I am blue. It's me. I am doing blueness. I'm the one. Right? But the the you could say the coming online of the two sides of the coin, right? The emptiness and the content, the context and the content is the coming online of the emptiness part or the emptiness side of the coin. And you can say the coming online of relationship between the two sides of the coin. The emptiness is backing, is in charging of the content, right? They are in cooperation, you can say. So it's not either or, but and both. The human experience is that, it's and both. It's not getting lost or confined in the ego identity. And at the same time, it's also not getting lost and confined in the emptiness, in the pure easiness, consciousness awareness, where you're just doing nothing, right? It's and both. It's the coming online of the two sides of the coin, you know? And what's really helpful about this is that when you recognize proper attribution, you can say that there is the redirecting of energy from being preoccupied with the idea of invalidation or arguing or battling, right? And instead recognizing the empowerment and choice to choose, to choose which you back, which you give funding to, because all are equal choices. For example, when an idea comes up, a limiting idea or a restrictive belief, let's say an idea of lack or disempowerment or notness, right? I am not this because blah, 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 or I don't have this because, etc. Or I am in this circumstance and there is this situation, therefore I am victimized and disempowered and I am uncomfortable. And this is a diminishment. This is a taking away from my wholeness, right? If that experience or idea arises, then it arises. That's a reality. That's an experience. If you try to invalidate that or go into battle against that, it'll be a waste of energy, you can say. It exists, right? So its validity is already given. That's why it exists. And you battling with its validity is going against reality, which is a waste of energy, a waste of time and energy. Fruitless agenda, you can say. And so, what is more fruitful is to give it its rightful attribution. That is its attribution. That you can say broadcast or identity construct or that position is characterized by that attribution. That is its attribution, basically. That the position of disempowerment and victimization and lack, that's its character. That's an official part of existence. And there is the recognition that the idea or experience that the equation of lack or victimization is the content of that. That is its flavor or that is its character. But you remain as the emptiness, right? So it's up to you to fund that, to funnel funding to that, if that is your choosing. You see, it came as an offer. It's like a neutral offering, right? And so when there is the recognition of proper attribution, and it's not an invalid existence or offer, since your energy is freed up from that battling or invalidation, then there's the liberation to choose, to go with or stick with that which you prefer and not, quote unquote, give your money to the salesman. You can say that it is recognizing that all cards of the deck is an official part of the deck. But you are you can say, the background or the space wherein the cards reside. Or you are the player who chooses the card, which card to use, right? To funnel energy onto, which card to feed. But the player is empty of the attributions of the cards. The attributions lie in the individual cards. It doesn't belong to the player. The player is empty of all those attributions. And that's the thing, all the cards are within the player's arsenal, you can say. The player contains all, right? So again, it's very futile to even argue or try to invalidate a card because it's part of the deck, you know? But it's up to you if you want to stop there, if you want to continue funneling energy into that, if that is where you want to stop, right? Or you want to continue to the quote unquote to the positive pool, so to speak. Like as a personal example, but without going to details, there was a moment or situation a while ago where there's a sense of discomfort. There's a sense of kind of feeling like your space is being taken up, and there's a sense of discomfort and victimization. Right? So that arose. And so that arose, there's no use trying to battle with that or invalidate that because that is an existence. Because that arose, it's reality, it's an existence. That arising is a valid existence. However, I did not, you can say, camp out in that frequency. I recognize, yes, yes, and yes, that's there. Yes, that's a valid card, so to speak. That's a valid offering. Yes. And at the same time, the card of empowerment is also equally available. It's also equally here, and I can choose to fund or funnel energy onto that. It's like an available choice for you to choose to back, meaning instead of backing or sponsoring the card of victimization and discomfort, and that person is victimizing me, etc. There is this equal choice where you can funnel your funding to instead. You can say, it's recognizing the other cards of the deck instead of being myopia-fied to the one single card of the idea of victimization. It's using right? It's using that card of victimization actually to point you to the opposite. It was used as a reminder that there is the opposite broadcast or frequency here where you can invest your energy into instead, where you can put your funds onto instead, right? You didn't get stuck in there. You didn't camp out in the initial arising of discomfort and victimization. And so, yeah, when you recognize, that you are empty of all attributions and all arisings are credited, right, or belong to their respective card in the deck, that all attributions or credit are credited in there, right? The attributions of the card are given their proper credit, and the player is recognized to be empty of all that. And knowing that you contain all, the positive and negative. The positive and negative is a valid existence in existence, right? It's all contained. And so when the negative arises, instead of fighting with it or trying to suppress it or invalidate it or whatever, you can just recognize, yes, that's an arising. That's the experience of it. Yes. And you see, it doesn't stop there. You don't have to camp out there and be miserable and be in moping of that negative idea or frequency or construct or whatever. And right, you can use and, you can say and at the same time this other equation exists, or this other construct exists, or this other frequency or broadcast is equally available, an equal option for me to choose, right? For me to redirect, to flow the energy or investment into. And with both choices, whether the positive or negative, the empty side of the coin remains empty. The player remains the player, right? Whether the player chooses the, let's say, I don't know, the spades or the heart, the player remains to be the player. The player remains to be empty of the character or attribution of the spades or the heart. Emptiness remains to be empty, you know, and blue remains to be blue. Red remains to be red. Spades is spades, heart is heart. It's ever ising, The nature of existence is isingness, ongoingness. So it's, you can say, invincible, ever steadfast, ever unwavering. The, you can say, the card of victimization will forever be in victimization. It's unwaveringly is. It's in perpetual, unwavering victimizedness. That is its parameter. That is its attribution. It's ever that. And at the same time, the other cards, let's say empowerment, wholeness, etc., is ever that, is ever unwavering, ever steadfast. Blue is unwaveringly, invincibly blue. In the face of whatever circumstance, blue is perpetually in bluingness, you know. It's not defined by circumstance. It's defined by itself. Blueness is defined by its own self, its own definition, not by outside circumstance. And this brings to mind the idea of adoration in religions. right? Adoration is a religious practice or a concept, right? There is the adoration or admiration for that supreme power. There's the admiration or adoration of that. It is the acknowledgement, it is the acknowledgement of this kind of quote unquote greatness, right? In religions, it is the acknowledgement of God's power, of God's supreme power or greatness. There's the reverence or acknowledgement for that. Now, in practical practice, when you are in funneling of energy or when you are quote unquote sponsoring or in backing of a certain frequency or of a certain construct, since the reality of existence is ever easing, ever steadfast, unwavering, invincible, right? Then there is the sort of natural admiration for that, even in the face of the circumstance. Oh, actually, the frequency or position or construct of empowerment is here, is ever empowered. Even in the face of this kind of circumstance, this frequency is ever that. Blue is unwaveringly blue. Red is steadfastly red. There's the recognition, or you can say adoration of that quality. It's ever that. It's staunchly or steadfastly that. Right. And so there's the appreciation, there's the, acknowledgement and venerate, quote unquote, veneration, reverence for that. This also reminds me of the, like when you sponsor, someone and that person, you can say, is very good at their job or it's very good at what they do. And, you are in admiration, right? You are in appreciation for that expression, right? For their quality, for their attribution. And again, it's in recognition, it's in acknowledgement of that. It's not usurping that quality or that attribution. You are the quote unquote investor, you are the funder, the backer of that. You are in charging of it instead of usurping, instead of conquering, instead of stealing or usurping that attribution or credit, right? That's how you can say the ego orientation is. It's in emergence, it's in usurpation, it's in colonizing, it's in conquering, right? It's in colonizing or merging with content. And so that is the, you could say, constricted myopic orientation. So when there's expansion, now there is the recognition of emptiness and the content, right? And the content is given their proper attribution, and emptiness remains empty. No matter which card is sponsored or given energy to, emptiness remains empty, empty of that. And so, as I've mentioned previously, it's a feeding game. You are nourished by what you nourish. You are nourished by nourishing. You are fed by feeding.